Hello, this is Samsa again from GamingonLinux.com, and today I'm going to talk to you about Nomad Fleet. It's an indie strategy game with FTL Homeworld and Battlestar Galactica influences, and it's currently on early access. Disclosure, I did get a key for this game. So in a Nomad Fleet, you command a fleet escaping from a mysterious race known as the Xenos that have wiped out all of the permanent human settlements, and you're currently on the run constantly because they are constantly hunting you down. And your mission is to reach this hyperspace jump gate that should lead you to another galaxy, and it should take you far enough away from the Xenos to completely escape from them and start to rebuild the human society. And all of this is done in a non-linear campaign, and this is where the FTL influences come in. The galaxy is divided into sectors, sort of like in FTL, and each sector contains its own encounters. So you can encounter all kinds of things, from pirates to naturally the Xenos are in there. There's also this Agendric Empire that they will usually try to destroy you or demand a toll for passing through their sectors. And then there are scavs, fellow humans, and traders. The homeworld influence, on the other hand, is in the combat section of the game, which is basically majority of the game. The combat is done in 3D space, sort of like in Homeworld, and it's done in real time. You command your ships around the battlefield and try to either knock out the enemy ships or protect your own mothership. Your jump drive is pulled, and you get to escape. You always have the choice of either fighting or running away from the fight. So if the enemy opposition is too strong, you might want to decide to wait until your jump drive is ready and then get out of this as fast as possible. And naturally there are multiple ship types. It does the fairly basic RTS fare where certain ship types are better against other ship types. For example, the fighters are against fighters and bombers. Bombers are good against capital ships. Corvettes are generally good against fighters, but there are some special variants of corvettes that are better at bigger ships. There is the laser corvette, for example, and then there is even the resource corvette, which is only used to collect resources. And then capital ships that are generally your heavy hitters, and then the mothership, which is used to build other ships, and it needs to be protected at all cost. The economy is based on mining asteroids and scavenging destroyed ships. That's how you get resources, and you then put those resources into use to either acquire technology to unlock more ships or to build the said ships. Technology is usually acquired by buying these, I assume they are buying blueprints or something like that from traders, and then you need to research them after you have bought them, and after that you can build ships based on those blueprints. This makes the tech a little bit difficult to acquire because you need to find these traders, and there are relatively few in this in the galaxy, so it might be a little bit difficult to get all the necessary technology because of course you have the limited resources, and then you need to also find the traders. So this is a thing that, in my opinion, should maybe change at least a little bit, make the tech a little bit easier to acquire, because at the end of the day you might actually not unlock all the necessary technology to get the big capital ships that you need in the end. There are relatively few of the encounters, so you will definitely see them repeated multiple times, and some of them actually play out pretty much the same way every single time. So there is a little bit of repetition there, and every time you enter a system you get this sort of an I don't really want to call it a cutscene, but the game informs you what is currently happening in the system and in the encounter. And in my opinion, that's a bit annoying because you often hear the same thing again and again, and it pauses your game, so you cannot actually get into the game immediately. You need to wait until the the information bit is over, and then you can do your combat or whatever. So I would like to have that not pause the game, so you could play even while the information is getting given to you. And the 3D space, it's a nice concept. Not a whole lot of games do the 3D space thing. One of the reasons why is because it's difficult to manage your units. So even though it does definitely bring in some interesting strategy, it's pretty difficult to manage your units, and the camera controls are kinda clumsy, so it might be a little bit difficult to navigate your way around. There is luckily a tactical view which allows you to manage your ships a little bit better, but it's still a bit clumsy. Graphically, Nomad Fleet it's good. I mean, it's okay. It's not the most beautiful thing. The ship models, etc., they're like passable. I mean, this is an RTS and strategy game, so it doesn't need to be the most beautiful thing ever. So I'd say the graphics are pretty much just good, and the performance is also good. It runs on my Intel HD Graphics 3000. Of course, you might need to drop some of the settings and maybe decrease the resolution a little bit, but it does run pretty well. And even though the game is occasionally buggy, remember this is early access, the bugs are never really like game breaking. Usually they are just some visual glitches that will pass. And another thing that is a bit weird is the difficulty curve. The game is relatively easy up until the jump gate, and I have reached the jump gate. It took me like 2 hours to get there, and the game is relatively easy until that point. Some of the encounters are definitely quite difficult, and you might sometimes struggle a bit, but usually you can quite easily get through, and the game is relatively generous in terms of resources. Sometimes you get very unlucky, but usually you get plenty of resources to build a strong enough fleet that you can actually fend off the enemies. But when you reach the jump gate, there is a huge spike in difficulty. There are a lot of Xenos there, and they have like big capital ships, and you seriously need a lot of big capital ships to get through, and also plenty of fighters and bombers to fend off the attackers. And you actually need to destroy some of the Xenos. You cannot just wait and run away. You actually need to destroy some of them. So that's a bit weird. And there's also the thing that there aren't a whole lot of Xenos until the jump gate. There are like some of the Xeno encounters, and if you go back to a previous like sector that you have visited, it's highly likely that you will actually see Xenos there. The Xenos are actually pretty difficult to kill. They have very powerful ships, and they often have capital ships with them. And especially in the beginning, they actually have capital ships that vastly outgun your ship, so you usually want to just run away from them. But in the jump gate sector, you cannot do that. Overall, I like the concept of Nomad Fleet. I like the way you need to balance risk and reward in this game, because of course, when you go into an encounter, you have these ships under control, but if you lose some of the ships, they are gone for good, and you need to replace them. So sometimes you really need to plan if fighting is actually worth the risk of losing like an escort frigate. So it's very like I like that concept a lot, because even though in other strategy games you should be thinking about things like that, but when like resources are this difficult to come by, you actually think about it a lot more. I actually felt really sad at times when I lost like a frigate or a couple of corvettes, because I knew that, okay, I messed up, this encounter wasn't worth it, I actually didn't get as much back as I wanted to, and I lost like 1,400 credits just because I was a little bit dumb. So I like the concept a lot, and the game can be played from start to finish. The content is it's basically, it's not content complete. The guy is still working on new like encounters and stuff like that. By the way, this game is made by one person, and that's a pretty nice feat, I'd say. But yeah, he's working on getting new content into the game. He has already worked on a couple of encounters, but he said he's going to save them for a big update down the line. Currently he's mostly focusing on bug fixing, and he has also changed a couple of things, like originally the encounters had set spawn points for the enemies. So if enemy reinforcements spawned in, they would always spawn in the same places, and now they don't do that. So the encounters are a bit more interesting now than they were before. But the game is playable from start to finish as it is, so you can play through the game already. And the game currently costs 14.99 euros. In my opinion, that's an acceptable price. I see there being enough enjoyment to justify 15 euros. So in my opinion, Nomad Fleet gets a recommendation from me. It's a nice game, and it's still obviously not like totally complete because it's early access, but based on what I've seen here now, I think the game is already really good, so I think you should probably consider it. Of course, the 3D strategy might not be for everyone, and that's probably one of the things that might actually make it a little bit difficult for some people, so I do recommend considering that as potential negative. It's not like doing a strategy game in 3D, it's not like it's not objectively bad, but it's definitely, it has its own set of problems that might actually turn off some strategy game players. I personally found it a little bit difficult, but if they fix some of the camera stuff, I probably won't have too much trouble with the game. And I have already enjoyed it quite a bit. I have played for 6 hours now, and I do plan on at least making it through that jump gate, because last time the game kind of screwed me over there because I got in there with far too few ships, and now that I know better, I will actually try to find more efficient routes that will get me more resources and more ships. So yeah, that's a thing. But overall, I do like the game. I do like the concept, and I think it's something that you should consider buying. So yeah, that's Nomad Fleet, and we will see in future videos.